Sachez que dès l'arrivée du Ouattara a reçu les lettres de créance de 4 ambassadeurs accrédités auprès de la République de Côte d'Ivoire. Le compte rendu de Jérôme Kofi Abolin.
That was very strongly in favor of President Gbagbo. And somewhere between 300 and 1,000 people in that western town of Côte were slaughtered, were with guns and with machetes. And Mr. Ouattara and his people tried to deny their involvement in the mass slaughter, but the forces took place in the town days earlier, and the Gbagbo forces were not even near the town. They had left the town a week before this happened. And so, don't believe me, but The Guardian, which is a British newspaper, reported just last night, they said, and I'm going to quote now from the newspaper, it said, the UN mission said traditional hunters known as Dozos fought alongside Ouattara's forces and took part in killing 330 people in the western town of Côte. The International Committee for the Red Cross said at least 800 people were killed in the violence, and I'm still quoting from the newspaper, last week. What we don't know is that 800 plus the 330, so roughly it's 1,000. Walame Heifa, who's the deputy head of the Human Rights Division of the United Nations mission in Ivory Coast, blamed 220 of the deaths on the pro-Ouattara forces. The full article goes into a lot of detail. Also, the British Broadcasting BBC reporter at Côte wrote in the last 24 hours that I spot 4 pigs eating something dark in a charred courtyard standing by a newly dug mass grave. A UN soldier from Morocco is choking with rage and grief. I ask him if any of the dead are children. He nods and begins to sob quietly into his face mask. I repeat, the massacre was not caused by the Gbagbo forces, but by the Ouattara forces who had taken over the town. President Gbagbo has called for a ceasefire repeatedly. I repeat that. He's called for a ceasefire, but the Ouattara forces have rejected it. Why? This massacre could have been avoided if the Ouattara had accepted mediation through the African Union. On March the 27th, the African Union sent former Cape Verde Foreign Minister Jose Brito to mediate between Ouattara and Gbagbo. Gbagbo accepted mediation, Ouattara did not. I've been following the events closely in Côte d'Ivoire since last fall and have spoken with various African dignitaries. I'm convinced that there is a serious question as to whether Ouattara is the legitimately elected president of Côte d'Ivoire. I've received substantial evidence of massive voter fraud in the rebel-held north of Côte d'Ivoire. That's the area from which Ouattara comes. And I've sent the evidence to the Secretary of Clinton on 2 occasions spanning the last few months. One of them is where we actually have the evidence of the number of votes that were stolen. In one letter, I pointed out, this is the last letter, which I'll make a part of this record, to the evidence which shows that Ouattara received 94,873 votes that were listed on a tally sheet for one of the 5 regions in the rebel-held north. Times this by 4, and it comes to very close to the margin of victory from that allegedly President Gbagbo lost. That's 400,000 votes. So if indeed a similar amount of voter fraud exists in these 4 regions, Gbagbo is the actual winner of the November 28th presidential